Hey, welcome to Way to Indies Music Hangout. This is Mia Jawa. Thank you for joining me. We're here with Zak Smith, who I have actually talked to before, so this is my first time talking to an artist for the second time, I guess. That's kind of a weird statement to make. But we'd like to welcome back Zak Smith.
Thanks. Thanks. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Zach is based in New Jersey, and he's on the East Coast, and he's been touring. Last time we talked to him, he had just released his album. And today we're talking to him again about his new album that's coming out a little bit later this month, or actually I believe it's next month, October 7th.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So October 7th. So not too far away from here, but still there. It's called The Signs of Life. It's a 10-track acoustic album. So Zach, before we get into talking about the album, how have you been since we last talked?
I've been good. I've been good. We've played a bunch of shows, toured around with the last album, and then since a little bit after that, then we started working on this acoustic type thing, and we've been doing that since around last summer. Since the end of last summer, we've been doing it. So we've been working on that on and off, and with the past couple months, we were mixing it, and we finished, within the last couple months. So we've been pretty busy.
Awesome. Busy is always nice, especially when it comes to writing and making music.
For sure.
Talking about the new album, it's called Signs of Life. I mentioned that. It's a 10-track acoustic album. Now, I've gotten the chance to actually listen to it, and I've listened to it quite a bit, actually, because I mentioned earlier last time we talked that your music it's very strong, not only like lyrically and musically, but also emotionally.
Oh, thank you.
And so, been listening to it over and over, and I've listened to a lot of it. So, tell us a little bit about the album, about your inspirations from it. Actually, let's start with that. Let's talk about your inspirations for the album in itself.
Sure. So the last album we did, the Precambrian Age, that was it was like a full band thing where there's lots of production, lots of different instruments, lots of layers to it, big arrangements. I wanted to do something that was more stripped down, where I could. Sometimes you can get lost in the mix if there's a billion instruments happening. So I wanted to do something that was stripped down, and that I could kind of, really get to the just basically the root of the song, and kind of focus on the songwriting aspect and the singing of it. I've been doing a bunch of different shows, and depending on how big the stage was, we'd either have the full band, or we'd be stripped down, or just be me with a guitar. And so over time, I worked up some new arrangements of the full band things we'd recorded. So the other reason for wanting to do it was I wanted to put those new arrangements on record. So that's what this album is. Most of the songs are things we have full band arrangements with, but these are very different arrangements than with the full drums and everything. Basically the inspiration for wanting to do it was I wanted to make sure my voice was really present, and I found when we sing live, when we play live, and it's stripped down, I'm able to kind of it's easier to reach the audience, to talk to them directly. So I wanted to make try to get that on record. So.
Yeah. Awesome. And you mentioned how you wanted to make sure your voice was present. This album, since I've listened to it, and also the last album, your voice itself is very present in this album. And that connection that you've made, like I mentioned earlier, the emotional connection is definitely stronger than it was in the other album, because of the way that it's more of a direct, personal feel to it. So.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
And talking about some of the tracks, now two of my favorite tracks on the album, and I won't mention them because you guys haven't released the album yet, so I don't want to give anything away. But two of them really speak out to me. So I wanted to ask you, talking about the album lyrically and composing and writing everything.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Well, this was a little different, because a lot of these songs were written in different periods. Like a bunch of the songs were from the very first album I released, which was in late 2007, early 2008. So it was a while back. So it wasn't like with this thing I sat down and I was like, all right, let me write an album. This was kind of taking songs that I felt would work in this acoustic kind of setting, or that I felt there are certain of these songs I felt like I could have done them better the first time. So it was also going back and trying to figure out what songs work in this setting, and which kind of felt, as a kind of not just like it was 10 tracks that had nothing to do with each other. Kind of the same emotion should have been running through them all. So the title "Signs of Life" kind of there's a song on the album called "Signs of Life," and I called the album "Signs of Life" because there's a kind of a bunch of political type songs on the album, and it was kind of, it was influenced by the Occupy Wall Street stuff that was going on, and Signs of Life kind of was referring to that. There's people are upset about things enough that they're out in the street. Everyone's not just not caring about what's going on. There's signs of life. So that's one way the title it ties them together. So I think that's kind of a running kind of theme throughout the songs about looking for signs, looking for signs of life, in yourself or in the world.
Awesome. So again, this is you took songs from older albums and stuff that you've already produced, but putting this out, what was the process like for you? Recording it, mixing it, getting everything put together.
Yeah. So we did half of it in my drummer has a home studio in Brooklyn, so we did a bunch of stuff there, and then I did the other half of it at a studio called Low Fish Studio in Manhattan, and then I mixed all of it at home in my house. I had to learn how to use I wasn't that equipped with mixing stuff and Pro Tools and all that stuff, but so I had to learn that, and it was like it was a painful slog of like having to learn this very technical stuff. So so that took probably about 3-4 months of just learning how to do that, and then just sitting there every day and mixing as much as I could. So that was the process. My drummer is a real talented guy. He added a bunch of percussion and stuff, and there's a great backup singer on the album called Mel Flannery. So you'll hear that on the album. There's big backing vocal parts, and it's all the same person. We just double tracked or triple tracked her voice, so it sounds very big and chorus like. So that was the process pretty much.
Awesome. And you mentioned having to learn Pro Tools. I learned a little bit of Pro Tools this summer, and I feel your pain because I was like, there's a lot going on in Pro Tools. So
oh God, yeah.
Yeah. But mentioning, doing the mastering yourself, was that different for you? We'll talk about okay, so a lot of independent artists and artists that do their music themselves and record and master and everything, they have more of a personal connection to their music. Than, at least I think that they're more personally connected to their music than if they're sending it out to someone to master or they're working with a studio to master it. Was that the same case for you when you were mastering the album?
100%, 100%. I'm really I get very, very obsessive, and especially about mixes. So everyone that I work with ever who's mixed something for me gets annoyed with me because I keep sending it back with changes. And then if ultimately I settle on something and then I hear it a month later and don't like it, it gets to me like severely. So this album I really wanted to make sure that I could sleep at night when it was over. So I made sure that I had my hand in everything more than I've had on any other album that I've done. So I feel pretty close to it. That's with anything I record in the future. I think that I will have to do it that way to be satisfied at the end. So yeah, I think for sure I feel much closer to this than when you send something out. And someone can do a good job, but still it's kind of, there's a distance between you and the track if someone else is playing with it.
Gotcha. Awesome. So you mentioned in future albums that you're releasing. So what is are you working on anything right now coming up for? I believe we last time we talked, you were also working on a rock album kind of in
Yeah,
the field coming out next year, I think.
yeah. So that's all written. We've been playing some of the songs that are going to be on it live, and we're hoping to get in the studio either in December at the earliest, and January hopefully at the latest, and release it next year. But it's different from this. It's very different from the acoustic stuff. It's a full band stuff. It's pretty, some of it's kind of hard stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. So before we go on to talking a little bit more about the future, with this album, what do you hope that the audience and listeners will feel after listening to it? And now, I always mention this, but if you go get this album, and I hope you do because it's amazing, I encourage you to listen to it entirely. And I say that with every album that ever comes out, is that listen to the album, in its entirety, and not just track by track, because there's a certain appeal to that, and there's a reason why sometimes okay, not always there's a reason, but there is mostly always a reason that those tracks are together in an album. So for you in this album, what do you hope that listeners will get out of it listening to it?
I hope that they emotionally feel something. I hope that that's always kind of what I hope. I hope that I'm reaching them on some level. That's kind of my. I'm not the most outgoing person, so music is kind of my way of talking to people. That's the way that I communicate. So I hope that people understand it, and it makes them feel good, or reaches them on some level. Basically, yeah, that's this is. I'm just trying to talk to people, I guess.
Gotcha. And I definitely think that listening to it entirely, I think you've definitely accomplished that.
Oh, thank you.
Because it does make you feel something.
Thank you.
So talking about going forward, and you mentioned some live performances. You're doing some East Coast shows, and you're still doing some. I think you have some coming up next month and throughout this month.
Yes.
You also performed at Falcon Ridge Folk Festival, correct? What was that like for you?
That was great. It was cool. I didn't really know what to expect, but it was this huge thing. There was a bunch of bands playing that day. You get to do 2 songs, but you're looking out on this huge field, and it's like it's a small version of what it's a very small version of what Woodstock must look like. But there's tons of people on these hills, and it's a farm, and I really didn't know what to expect from it, but it was really cool. And the other people, there was a bunch of great bands and singers who played that day, so it was great to be a part of that. It was a cool experience.
Awesome. Well, I definitely wish I could have been there, because I watched some videos that came out of there, and I was like, this is definitely something interesting. It was a really and you mentioned like a small Woodstock feel, but I got that little bit of a feeling from there. From watching this. But with okay, so do you have any plans to tour with this album, or are you just doing smaller shows?
Well, we have a small tour in early October. We're playing this weekend in Philly, and then we're playing another festival in Jersey this weekend too. And then it's starting in early October. We're playing a bunch of dates. We're going up to northeast. We're going to Vermont, New Hampshire, playing in Massachusetts, and then so the album release is going to be in New York on the October 7th. And so then hopefully. I've been caught up with last minute things about the artwork and all that stuff, so I got to get back with booking stuff. So yes, I want to tour more with it. So maybe mid to late November, maybe something in late October.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So and then talking about the album that's coming out next year.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you guys haven't started recording in the studio yet, but are you planning to do more of a nationwide tour with that, or something bigger with that?
We would love to do that. It's always a question of money at this point. If if we can get an opening spot for somebody, I would do it in a heartbeat. Booking a national thing at this point is probably going to be tough. But if the opportunities fell into place, I would do it in a heartbeat for sure.
Awesome. Well, I definitely hope you get the opportunity because I would love to see you down here in
Oh, thank you.
Texas.
Are you in
But
Texas? Is that where it is?
yeah,
Where?
yes.
Where at in Texas?
I'm in Huntsville right now. I was in Houston, so close to
Oh.
Houston, about 2 hours away from Houston. So
Oh, okay. Cool, cool.
yeah,
I
yeah.
the one,
It's always a little tiny area that I'm in, and almost no one that I talk to comes around because it's more of a major city, and everyone's in the smaller cities and stuff. And thanks, guys. I'll see you sometime, but I definitely do hope that you get to come down here sometime.
we would love to come down there. I've never been. My drummer is from Texas, so I'd love to get down there one day for sure.
Awesome. Well, I definitely hope I get to see you.
No.
So before we start wrapping it up here, is there anything else that you'd like to mention about the album, or just going forward with your music?
No, I think that you covered it pretty much. I think you hit all the bases pretty much.
Awesome. Well, I got a home run, I guess. Um, so before we finish off, there's always one question I like to ask the people that I talk to. Can you tell us one interesting thing about yourself that most people wouldn't know?
That most people wouldn't know. I love. Geez, I forget what I said last time.
See, I don't remember what what you said last time. So if you
If it's the same
repeat it, it's
thing.
perfectly fine.
Okay.
And, I'm
All
sure
right.
we could go back and look, but it's.
All right. I um. Oh, this isn't this isn't so interesting, but I played basketball in high school, and I for 2 years, and I got the I wasn't very good. I'm tall, but I'm not very physically coordinated. So I got the most improved player award, which is it's a left-handed kind of compliment, but that most people who know me would be surprised that was I played sports at all. So that's a semi-interesting fact about me.
Well, that definitely is interesting. So thank you again for chatting with us, taking the time out. Like I said, the album is available October 7th for you guys who are listening and watching. Go check it out. Go check out Zak's Facebook, Twitter, all that fun jazz. If you have a chance, listen to his older albums, especially the last album. Listen to it entirely. Like I said before, you don't have to, but I'd recommend it. Zak, again, thank you for joining us. Your music is always, and I've mentioned this so many times throughout this when we're talking, but your music is emotionally powerful, and it really does connect on a personal level with, I think, every listener that can listen to it. So I thank you for making music like that and lyrically just composing something so amazing.
Oh, thank you for saying that. It's very nice of you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, too.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for us. We'll be coming back. Hopefully, I'll be back next week with someone else. I know we haven't been doing music hangouts as regularly as I'd hoped to. It's just been a little busy with our scheduling and everything. But hopefully, we'll be back next week with another artist. Zak, thank you again for chatting with us. We'll have a post up on Way to Indie hopefully by the end of this week, which is in 2 days. So I better get writing quickly, fast. But hopefully, we'll have it up within the next week, and then I'll have some links up for Zak's Facebook and all that stuff like I mentioned earlier. And thank you again for everyone for watching, and thanks, Zak, for joining us.
Thanks.
Zak is based in New Jersey, and he's on the East Coast, and he's been touring. Last time we talked to him, he had just released his album, and today we're talking to him again about his new album that's coming out a little bit later this month, or actually, I believe it's next month, October 7th?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So October 7th. So not too far away from here, but still there. It's called The Signs of Life. It's a 10-track acoustic album. So Zak, now I've gotten the chance to actually listen to it, and I've listened to it quite a bit actually because I mentioned earlier last time we talked that your music it's very strong, not only like lyrically and musically, but also emotionally.
Oh, thank you.
And so, been listening to it over and over, and I've listened to a lot of it. So, tell us a little bit about the album, about your inspirations from it.
So we've been working on that on and off, and with the past couple months, we were mixing it and we finished, within the last couple of months. So we've been pretty busy.
Awesome. Busy is always nice, especially when it comes to writing and making music.
For sure.
Talking about the new album, it's called Signs of Life. I mentioned that. It's a 10-track acoustic album. Before we get into talking about the album, how have you been since we last talked?
I've been good. We've played a bunch of shows, toured around with the last album, and then since a little bit after that, then we started working on this acoustic type thing, and we've been doing that since around last summer. Since the end of last summer, we've been doing it.
Hey, welcome to Way Too Indie's Music Hangout. This is Mia Jajawa. Thank you for joining me. We're here with Zak Smith, who I have actually talked to before, so this is my first time talking to an artist for the second time, I guess. That's kind of a weird statement to make. But we'd like to welcome back Zak Smith.
Thanks. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.